Good morning, everybody. We're going to give the people a little bit, another minute or two to join us, but if you would like to, if you feel comfortable unmuting and even showing us your video, we'd love to meet you. And if you're not comfortable doing that, that's also fine. Hi, Sarah. Nice to see you here. Hi there, Ayla.
Hi, good to see you. My name's Isla.
Isla, thank you for correcting me on that.
Of course, nice to meet you.
That's a beautiful name. I have not seen that name before.
Yeah, it's a hard one to figure out how to pronounce from the way it's spelled.
But I bet it's easier for people to remember because it's not just something common like Anne. While we are waiting, would you two like to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your business and what your goals are for cross-border e-commerce or international trade?
Sure. My name is Sarah Lee, and I have a company called Sarah Silks, and Isla and I work together, and she can tell you a little more about her job, her position at the company. But I've been in business for, I guess, almost 30 years, and we do wholesale, retail, and we also have an Amazon store, and we make toys for children. We design them all and manufacture them, and then we sell to stores around the world. So we already are selling in stores around in other countries. And I heard about this, I believe, through Claudine, right? Who mentioned it to me. And we're in the Bay Area, so I don't know if that's where you are. I don't know anything. I don't really know much about this, but
Great.
Yeah.
You'll know more about it when we're done here today.
Great. I'll let Isla share what her.
Awesome. And just one second. Joyce, welcome. We're giving people a few minutes to join because we have a few more people registered. If you feel comfortable coming on video or coming off of mute, we're giving the guests a chance to just introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what their goals are for cross-border e-commerce or international trade. And Isla's going to tell us her role right now.
Yeah, so like Sarah said, Sarah Silks sells both direct to customers, and we do sell internationally through our retail website as well. And then we have, I would say, a little bit less than a half of our B2B sales are on different international markets. So we're always just looking to learn how to improve our processes and kind of understand things from the perspective of our partners in those different markets, especially in Europe. That's where we're really trying to focus on growth and looking at different kind of distribution channels. So I'm excited to learn.
Thank you. And Joyce, I can't quite see you. Oh, there you are. Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry for being late.
Oh.
So the question was,
if you'd like to just introduce yourself, tell us. Maybe I'll give Moja a second here to also make sure that she's on and can hear this. Good morning, Moja. We are taking a moment here to just have each of our guests introduce themselves and say a little bit about what your business is and what your goals are for cross-border e-commerce or international trade. And Joyce was just about to tell us about her goals.
yeah, I'm not very far along with my idea, but it's basically a cultural sharing platform. So it's kind of a lead generation for people who might help just basically very universal passages in life. I find that many cultures have very helpful ways of ushering people through very typical life passages. And I wanted to offer that as not only a cultural exchange, but just as mutual support between people.
Nice.
and it involves many countries. So
And so you say you're not very far along. Where are you in this process?
I have a lot of information I've collected, and I figured that the website requires so much back end work, and I didn't really have the money for that. So it's basically a very loaded concept, not with partnerships yet or anything like that. So not very far along, unfortunately.
Well, there is no unfortunately in our business journeys. There are different stages. So, and they all start with an idea, and it sounds like you've done a lot of the research already. So, when we get into it, be sure to listen toward the end. Kevin Mather, the CEO of Northern California World Trade, will be talking about some resources that are available for businesses that need help with developing websites.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And let's see, we just had Robert join us. Robert, are you comfortable introducing yourself? Coming off of mute, please.
Yeah, so once again, my name is Robert Newman, and I teach at California Maritime Academy in Vallejo, California.
Oh, fabulous. Well, why don't we go ahead and begin? There may be a few more people joining us, but Claudine, would you like to
Oh,
start?
how about Moja? Moja, would you like to
Oh,
introduce yourself?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, did I pronounce your name correctly? Moja?
Oh, yes, you actually, both of you, it's you're saying it correctly, so thank
I'm
you.
so sorry I missed you there. I
No
mentioned you and
worries.
then I skipped right over you.
That's okay. My name is Moja Harmon, and I have my own coaching company, Moja Harmon Coaching. And the goal for today is just to learn more about the topic.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Fabulous.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Claudine, the incoming president of NABO San Francisco Bay Area chapter. So welcome to the webinar on our website, Globalization. NABO has always been at the forefront of empowering women entrepreneurs and providing them with the tools and knowledge to succeed. So in line with our mission, we have gathered a panel of distinguished experts who will share their expertise and success stories today. We do value your participation and engagement throughout this webinar, so feel free to ask questions, share your experiences, and in the chat and Q&A boxes. So this session will also be recorded. Next, I'd like to invite Anne Staines, our board member, who is also on the panel today, and to introduce the panel of experts. Anne is one of my favorite people. Her company helps purpose-driven companies grow, create public outreach campaigns that help public agencies and nonprofits create positive social impact. Amongst her recent accolades, she was named by the SBA as Women-Owned Small Business of the Year for Sacramento District. She was also voted Most Admired CEO, and the list goes on and on. So, Anne, if you will.
Thank you, Claudine. I feel so honored that I'm one of your favorite people because you're my favorite people. So I just love this. I'll start with introducing Kevin Mather. I've known Kevin for, 25 years, something like that. He is the president and CEO of the World Trade Center of Northern California and is responsible for strategy and execution of a diverse range of programs that are encompassing international trade and diplomacy. He focuses on developing technical assistance and training by helping small to medium-sized businesses that look to expand their sales globally. He has worked in the education technology field for close to 25 years, most of that time focused on international business. He's a million-mile plus traveler, is that right, Kevin? Yeah, he's visited more countries than I thought there were countries. And he's managed international and domestic sales and customer service teams, as well as international marketing. And in that travel, that it's more than 60 countries. Okay. And he said he feels fortunate to count many of his former business partners as friends in other countries. So Kevin will be talking a little bit about the Northern California World Trade Center and its available services. And then we also have with us today, Patrick Peralt. Patrick is CEO of Getting to Global Incorporated. He has spent the past 20 years delivering world-class e-commerce sites and digital campaigns for companies ranging from startups to multinationals in sectors that include retail, life sciences, entertainment, manufacturing, and more. Patrick and his team have built sophisticated international trade establishment websites for the government of Canada, for Switzerland, and the UAE, and as well as Western Australia. His work and expertise have benefited clients including Amazon, the NFL, Adidas, and Food Network. So we are extremely fortunate to have him here today to answer questions and get a little bit of not only his insights, but maybe even some personal advice in answering any questions that you have. So Kevin, would you like to start us off, please? And you can tell us a little bit about what we can expect today.
Well, thank you very much for inviting Patrick and I to join me today and share a little bit of information. World Trade Center Northern California is really focused on helping small businesses that want to diversify revenue and grow their sales through international business. And you know, it's something that I love. I mean, international business is the most interesting puzzle game, to my mind, that somebody can pursue. And really, I like to focus on that diversification, because when you do build international business, what it does is it helps your company to be more resilient. You grow, typically international businesses grow faster, they're more resilient, and they survive economic cycles better. And those to me are the real big reasons that you want to take and engage in it. We're fortunate to have Patrick with us today. Patrick brings a very great expertise to this subject that we're going to talk about. And we're working on a program right now with the Northern California SBDC to help small businesses that want to improve their online e-commerce and to diversify revenue through cross-border e-commerce. And that really takes the three component forms. There's education sessions where we take and do deep dives into a specific content area, whether it's cross-border payments, or it could be the merchant of record model, or it could be, you know, how do you handle fulfillment, or how do you handle online marketplaces. So there's these deep dives into content areas. There's also co-working sessions where we actually work together, small groups of businesses, and help them specifically with tactical issues related to their e-commerce journey. And then we also do one-on-one counseling with them, to where we have another person that's working with us. His name is Josh Halpern, and he has very deep expertise in international e-commerce. And so he's also available to work with companies on a one-on-one basis. The other part of the project is to introduce, it's a workforce development internship program. So for interested and qualified companies, we actually have student interns that we're currently training in a number of areas, in both in Meta and in Google Analytics and Google, to where they can actually help companies with some of the implementation tasks, and as well as gaining experience along the way. With that, and if anybody's interested in that program and learning more, I'll put my contact information in the chat, and it's also a follow-up document we'll send out. Would love to chat with you more about it. And with that, I'll turn it over to Patrick. And Aaron.
Thank you, Kevin.
So Patrick, is there anything you'd like to say before? I've got a few questions I'd like to throw
No,
out.
I mean, so much has been said already. I just want to say on the topic of cross-border, I'm currently a cross-border. I'm talking to you from Montreal, Quebec. So the accent you'll be hearing today is a poorly disguised French-Canadian accent. I'm very happy to be here. A few things that I'd like to add maybe are some of the e-commerce clients that we work with, because we do work with a lot of brands. So we work with Silver Jeans, we work with Revolve, we work with Shopbop. But we also work with organizations that are leveraging digital to grow cross-border in many different sectors. And you'll have to excuse me, I'm dog sitting for my neighbor who went into labor this morning and did not really have a plan B. So hopefully no bark. Um, I'm just happy to be here. We work with clients that are SaaS businesses, B2B, B2C, direct to consumer. Really doesn't matter. So a lot of what we'll be discussing today will be relevant for any type of company, really.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And good for you for making sure that the dog is taken care of as a new human comes into the world. What are the realities of working remotely? Okay,
Exactly.
so to begin with, of course, we've all heard about the massive increases of e-commerce adoption during I'll say the first 2 years of the pandemic. I'm not quite ready to say that. I guess it is officially over, but we saw a great number of increase of online merchants expanding to new markets during that time. Now that phase of life is behind us, is it too late for businesses to start really with online cross-border, or do you feel like the market's already saturated?
The market definitely isn't saturated, right? We're living in a big world, and I think while we're not seeing, sorry, I'm Canadian, so I'll say the hockey stick curve, right? We saw massive adoption early during COVID, and actually, I prepared I took a few excerpts from our massive master document that we use for our e-commerce internationalization workshops. But McKinsey said that basically COVID had compressed 10 years of e-commerce adoption into 3 months. When you really don't have a choice to go elsewhere, you'll start shopping online. So the great thing is what we're looking at, and what we saw, that COVID really accelerated the adoption of e-commerce for certain sectors like fashion. What we saw, and you'll see it here on the right, we see that there was a sharp increase in 2019 from 2020, but we've seen that growth slow down slightly, but it's still growing. So even though we massively went to online channels in 2019 and 2020 during the lockdowns, it didn't go back to normal. It didn't decrease, or it just kept going. So that curve is still going up. And as you can see here, while you're seeing either stability or it's a slight growth, let's say for G7 economies and countries like UK, Japan, South Korea, and the United States, you're still seeing in certain markets like China massive growth in the e-commerce or massive growth in e-commerce sales. So that's very encouraging. So did we miss the train? Absolutely not. It's still growing rapidly. It's a $5 trillion market. It's 20% of retail sales that are happening online. Obviously, a lot of this is driven by China. We've seen, however, economies like the LATAM region, Latin America, the adoption of e-commerce in LATAM has been steadily going up. We see a lot of retailers selling online there and having great success. The total addressable market, the TAM, is also getting larger. We have 4 billion people currently online. Half of those are buying online already. That 8 billion is going to go to 6 billion within 10 years. So you can imagine that this will likely bring to the market 1 billion new consumers. So is it too late? Absolutely not. Right now, 57% of digital buyers also purchase from international online stores. So Americans bought from France, Chinese consumer bought from the United States. That's pretty impressive considering that number of 5 years ago was less than 10%. So buying cross-border, not selling, buying cross-border is becoming normal to people because all the tools that are now available to sell cross-border, they've gotten much better. Implementing an internationalization strategy for an e-commerce website, I worked on the first international transactional e-commerce site for Adidas 12 years ago, I think.
Wow.
And it was a 3-year project that involved tens of millions of dollars just in making sure that the administrative part of things, the financials, all made sense. Today, that's probably like a 6-month project for a company of that size. So is it too late? Absolutely not.
Wow, that's really impressive. Little did you realize that you were teeing yourself up to be so valuable for the pandemic.
Yeah, we got popular real quick for a while.
I
Definitely.
bet.
Eventful times.
Okay, so we're talking about global expansion today, but I'm sure some of these companies that you work with can't expect to target the whole world at once. I can't imagine taking on all of that at one time. How can companies choose which markets to target?
Well, that's a really good question because and this is, I think, the number one mistake companies that are adopting, especially cross-border e-commerce, will make, is they'll try to go, like the movie says, everything everywhere all at once, right? We'll sell to all the countries. We're not going to sell to France or Germany. No, no, no. We're going to sell to all of the EU and all the languages of the EU. So we're going too hard, too fast. Really, and I think that's a word that I'm going to use a lot today, incremental, right? So you need to use an incremental approach to internationalization, and that starts by starting small. Unless you're a multinational that's been given a mandate to internationalize aggressively, you should take your time and you should be careful in your approach. And now I can show you a few ideas of how you can, and then obviously my sharing for some reason has disappeared. Let me just bring this back. So a few of the things, right, that you can do to simplify going global. There are tools and there are strategies that you can use when going global. So oftentimes, the first thing you will do is go to your local chamber of commerce, go to your SBDC, or go to your World Trade Center, right? And there you can work with experts that will help you. Or in certain cases, companies will go directly to a market analyst or a consulting firm that will help them with that. With that said, though, there are a few things you can do by yourself using tools that are usually free to do a bit of the groundwork yourself, right? But before you start doing any of that research, it's good to look at a few of the elements to consider when selecting target markets. So one or multiple market could be a region like the EU or Latin America, for example. So the first one is the language barrier, right? If you have a lot of content, if you are new at selling internationally, it makes sense to start with low-hanging fruit markets where English is the primary language. You could be selling to Canada. We're great people. We love buying across border. We're used to it. UK, Australia are also very culturally compatible markets. That's the second aspect, cultural compatibility. At the other end of the spectrum, like, yes, China's an amazing market. It's growing very fast. They buy everything online. While their economy is still growing very fast, but it's a country where the language barrier and the cultural barrier is much higher. So it's better to start with a market that is culturally compatible and that has a good size, right? And then here you need to look beyond just the total population. China is a huge market. And if you're selling, let's say, very high-end goods to a high net worth individual, well, it does have a pretty big market of high net worth individual, but they're spread among a larger population. You may, in this case, if you're targeting high net worth individuals, look at the Middle East as an interesting market. So you need to make sure that when you're considering market size, you look beyond just population. Now, I mentioned language, and obviously it's a primary aspect of localization, but localization is more than just translations. You need to look at how you'll need to adapt your content, your product lines, your methods and your processes to a culture. So that's also important. Legal and regulatory considerations are important. If you're selling into the EU, regulatory requirements will be much more, let's say it'll be much more thorough than if you're selling it to Algeria, for example. So that's important. I mentioned purchasing power. If you're selling, you need to be mindful of who will buy your product, who your target is in terms of, let's say, socio-demographic profile. You need to make sure that they have the purchasing power to buy your product. You need to make sure you can be competitive in other markets, competitive with your product's features, quality, price, and more importantly, total landed price, right? The final price that your customer will pay for a fully delivered product, fully landed product, where duties and taxes have been paid and shipping is included. So once you've you familiarize yourself with these elements, then you can use these tools that I mentioned. One tool that I really like for for physical products is OEC.world. The OEC is the Observatory of Economic Complexity, and I believe they're at the MIT School of Business. I may be wrong, but they're related to MIT somehow. And you can go on there, search for your product, and it would show you a number of a very cool visualization. That's what you see on the left. That's what you see on the right. That will show you who is importing your products. So this one is free. This one is really fun to use, and it'll give you an idea of who is importing your products. Now, if a country has a high demand, you're looking at, let's say, China, and they say, well, they should be like, my product I know will be popular over there. And then you use that tool and you see, well, yeah, my product should be popular, but they're not importing that much. Well, then in that case, you should usually design of a strong local offering, strong domestic offering, and maybe it'll be harder for you to compete in that market. So these are all insights you can gather from a free tool. Now, if you're in the service or the software as a service business, the tool that I just showed you, OEC.world, will do nothing for you because it's just product imports. So if you're a service exporter, or if you want to sell service or SaaS, software as a service solutions outside of the United States, one tool that I love is OECD.stat. And they have a data set over there that's totally free, a little bit hard to work with. The tool is not the most high performance, but it's free, so can't complain. And it will show you the number of businesses in a very specific target sector. So let's say you have entertainment and you want to, within entertainment, drill down to amusement parks. Then the OECD.stat is able to show you the number of businesses in that sector, let's say number of amusement parks in Brazil. So let's say you're selling, we work with Connect and Go. They make these RFID bracelets to walk around and pay for stuff in an amusement park, right? So that can be very useful for them. The other thing that you can do with that tool is look by size of business. So let's say you're selling cost-effective medical imaging products that are better suited for smaller hospitals and clinics. That's actually a piece of data you can get from that. You'll see the number of employees. I think it's 1 to 250, 250 to 1,000, and more than 1,000. So if you're selling to large hospitals, you just say, show me hospitals with more than 1,000 employees, and that'll show you the number of businesses, number of establishments, actually is the term they use, in that market. And that, by the way, if you're ever looking at these fancy $10,000 reports that a few companies that shall remain nameless will try to sell you, well, oftentimes we've reviewed these reports and we knew exactly where the data was coming from, and it was coming from that free resource. So hot tip, that's free.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this one honestly is amazing. One of my favorite data source. Now, if you want to take a shortcut, you can use completely free tools that are connected to search engines, right? Basically, you can use Google Trends or Ahrefs or Moz or even the Google Ads keyword tool. I forget, keyword planner tool rather. And you can see how many people are searching for keywords that pertain to your services or products in a specific market, and see if it's been trending up, has it been trending down, how many people are searching for that. Because if people are searching for a product online, it usually means that there's a demand for it. Now, you need to be careful there. If you're targeting Europe, not everybody there will be making searches in English. So it's good and people may not be searching for a product specifically. They may be making a search around a pain point or problem or an objective that they have. So you can get really creative there, build a huge list of keywords, translate it to another language, run your search again. And this will give you an idea of how competitive the market can be over there, how big the demand is. And then these tools, and I'll have one that's called Jungle Scout. We have tools just like this for marketplaces as well. So that's really interesting. And then lastly, and that's one thing that people often forget to look at, inside Google Analytics. Now, this is Google Analytics, Universal Analytics. Universal Analytics, they moved over to GA4. That looks different and is much harder to use. I don't know why they did that, probably because they hate us. But there used to be, now it's called something else, and I apologize for not remembering the word, but there's a way for you to see where your website visitors are coming from now. And oftentimes we'll have companies come to us and say, oh, we want to go into the United Kingdom. Well, then we look at Google Analytics and we see that 30% of their, that's an actual real case here, 30% of their visitors were from Canada and they were not shipping to Canada. That right there is a good indication that with minimal effort, you'll be able to convert these 30% visitors into actual, buyers. So this one here, all of these resources, right? All of this completely free. And then once you've done your preliminary research, you have a good hunch, an educated hunch about a few markets, then you can talk with your local World Trade Center, you can talk to consultants, and you'll have a lot more answers and a lot fewer questions for them.
That's great. Thank you. So those of you who are following along at home, we will we are recording this and make this recording available to you, so you'll have all of those names. And we can also, I'm assuming, Patrick, that you'll share your slides.
Of course.
Great.
Of course.
Okay.
We'll make a nice PDF out of that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. We know some businesses already have a website or an e-commerce site. Can you internationalize an existing site, or are there platforms better suited for international trade than others?
Right. Well, there are definitely platforms that will internationalize better than others. I noticed, for example, I went and checked briefly. Sorry, I'm nosy like that. I noticed that someone was already on Shopify. So Shopify is a good example of a platform that internationalizes really well. Other platforms like Adobe Magento, Salesforce Commerce Cloud, BigCommerce will internationalize very well, meaning we can add content translation, international payment options very easily. Others, like if you're on Wix, if you're on Squarespace, if you're on GoDaddy's platform, for example, these are much more hobbyist level solutions that currently have no options for you when it comes to internationalizing your website. And I think I've got actually a nice little table here that I will invite people to have a look at once they have the slides. But we did an analysis of all the platforms. Now there are many more platforms. This one, for example, doesn't have Lightspeed. This one doesn't have Shopline. But let's say these are the most popular platforms in the United States. And as you can see here, Squarespace and Wix, they're not suitable for cross-border e-commerce. And then depending on who you are and how big you are, you might require more or less features. So SMB-friendly options, WooCommerce, for example, that is an e-commerce extension for WordPress, Shopify. And if you're looking for a little bit more customization options, BigCommerce, Magento, and then if you're enterprise or let's say mini enterprise or enterprise, you might be looking, for example, at Salesforce Commerce Cloud. And if you look at the key e-commerce functionalities for cross-border, you'll see that most of these will have not necessarily all of these features built in, but they'll usually have these features available as extension. Now, the most complete that we've seen is Salesforce Commerce Cloud, formerly Demandware. But as you can see here, for example, Magento has a fairly complete offering when it comes to internationalization. Only drawback with Shopify specifically is it's a walled garden now. So you have to use Shopify Markets, which is their built-in internationalization offering. Before that, you could mix and match different extensions. But Shopify, if you're looking, for example, to take whatever you have now for the United States and sell into Canada, you can set up your Shopify instance in a few hours, and we've done that for clients. So very easy. Now, a few of the plugins, like if you already have a website, I'd say there's an 80% chance that it's either Shopify if you're already selling online, or WordPress and WooCommerce if you're selling online. So these are a few of the extensions that are the most popular and that we recommend the most when you're trying to internationalize an existing website. WPML is WordPress multi-language. Obviously, it's for WordPress, but it's the gold standard. That's what we deploy for all the clients that are using WordPress or WooCommerce. Now, if you're outside of WordPress, Weglot is usually our go-to. It actually works if this one also works with Shopify as does it with Squarespace, Wix, BigCommerce. It can be used with a lot of these platforms, and it allows you more granular control over your translations for these platforms. It's not easy to use. It's not free, but WPML is free, but it's a really good product. A few of the tools that we use, Justuno and Popton. I don't really have a preference there. I've worked with both, but one thing that we love doing for international visitors is welcoming them with a pop-up in their language. So I think I have an example that we could share, but Justuno and Popton have geolocation, geo-targeting capabilities. So if we detect that someone's coming from Germany, we can present a message in German saying, "Hey, willkommen. We ship to you. We have a 60-day money back guarantee. Average delivery times are 1 week, and you'll be paying duties and taxes, so no bad surprises there." So we love using these pop-up tools. These two are especially rich. They're not free. They're not crazy expensive either. And then, and then if you're looking to push it even further, like if you're looking to extend the capabilities, except for Shopify that has its own cross-border checkout solution with built-in multi-currency payment. If you're outside of Shopify, we have Digital River and Zonos, who are two different approaches, but basically what they do is in the end, they allow a customer to pay in their local currency. So if I'm in Germany, I'll pay in euros. I won't be presented the price in euros and then pay in US dollars. I'll pay in euros. And when I'm looking at my bank statement, it'll be clear where that transaction came from. And then some of the research tools that you should use. I mentioned Google Analytics before. I mean, this is the go-to solution. Everyone has it installed. Let's say if you're on Shopify, you'll have a bunch of analytics there too. One thing that I like to do though is Hotjar. We like to deploy this because this basically records user sessions. So you can see where people are clicking, how they're using your site. And you can look at how international visitors will behave compared to, let's say, local visitors, and gather some insights, see what they're interested in, see if they're abandoning the cart, when they're abandoning it. Like, are they, they calculate shipping, and then as soon as they see shipping, they leave. That's a good indication that something's wrong. And then if you're looking at doing a bit more research into specifically marketplaces, have a look at Jungle Scout. There are a number of competitors. They usually do pretty much the same thing. Jungle Scout just happens to be one that I'm familiar with and that I've used in the past. But this will allow you to look at other marketplaces. So Amazon.ca for sure, but also Rakuten in Japan, Coupang in South Korea, for example. So they do cover multiple marketplaces.
That's so helpful. Thank you. And really helpful for B2B, or sorry, for B2C or direct sales. But can you talk a little bit about B2B or even SaaS companies doing business internationally?
Right. So B2B and SaaS, well, especially if you're targeting enterprise clients, if SaaS in a B2B setting, right, they have very similar challenges. So the first thing is, for the most part, sometimes it's slightly different, can depend on the market. But if you're looking at B2B clients, if you're engaging with B2B clients or leads, usually the English is still going to be the language of business. So for the most part, when dealing with B2B companies, translation is not going to be as big a priority as it would be, for example, for consumers. the one thing that you need to keep in mind, and the one, let's say the one recommendation I would make if you're selling to B2B or you're selling SaaS, is to invest in creating content that demonstrates your ability to offer good service and to support international clients. And that's something where I was trying to find a really good example to show you, but you know what? The sad truth is there are not a lot of good examples out there. So I asked a client that we're working with if I could share a few of the recommendations that were presented to them. So that's what I have here, and I'm allowed to share that with you. Thank you to Fend for allowing us to do that. So we always recommend creating at least a basic international buyers page. As in the B2B space, it really makes a difference. And that page here, once it was fully designed and deployed, once it will be, it will do great things for conversion. So we're now looking at just a basic, all in English, a basic page for international buyers. So a few things you need to clearly identify here is where can you, or what markets do you serve? Make it clear, use flags, use a list, I don't care. It needs to be clear that you are actively targeting a specific market. So let's say I'm Canadian. Well, I'm Canadian, but let's say I land on your site. I want to see, I want this abundantly clear that you do business, you deliver to Canada, you're happy to work in Canada, you have the authorization, you have registrations, whatever, you're able to sell into Canada. So a visual indication that you're actively selling. Now, we could, like a few things, in some cases, you may have these flags linked to a page that's dedicated to a specific market. But the key thing here, right, when you're building these international pages, and if you're looking at just a basic, let's say, worldwide version of that page, you need to show who you worked with in specific regions, if not in a specific country. Because what you want to demonstrate here is that you have experience dealing with a specific market. And if you don't, that you have experience dealing with similar markets. This way, it's a social proof, right? These testimonials here that you see are number 3 will make a big difference. So if I'm looking at buying services or licensing a SaaS product, knowing that you've done business with companies that are similar to mine or in my market will alleviate the fear that you may not be able to support me effectively. And then as you're growing, let's say your content offering on the site, right? Incremental there again. It's good to, even before you start translating a page, I prefer to focus on a country-specific or sometimes region-specific landing page. Let's say Middle East, Northern Africa, or Middle East and then Europe, Southeast Asia, before you go into a specific country. But let's say you're targeting specific markets, specific countries, then I would recommend that you take a very similar approach, but for one country in particular. So here you basically do the same thing. You basically make your pitch. You describe your value prop, your service, your products, and then you show, ideally, if you can, logos of companies in the region or in the country where that you've done business with. Because again, this is social proof. And these testimonials on the page are usually what, in which we're looking at what Hotjar is showing us in terms of, how people are browsing your content. We see them slow down when they hit those testimonials, when they see the logos of the people you've been working with. And these landing pages will convert way, way more. They'll be much more efficient and effective at generating leads. And then lastly, like the third step, is if you're targeting a market where you believe language can be a barrier, then invest in a professional translation. Don't use Google Translate, or if you really want to use a translator, at least use DeepL, but have a local translate your content to the local language, and I'll say the local flavor of the language. I'm French Canadian. My accent is completely different, and the words I use are completely different from someone from Paris. And if you're, let's say, if you're using Mexican Spanish In Europe, it's not gonna work well. So working with a professional translator here is a great investment. So to your question, I think it comes down to making sure that you communicate clearly that you are the right partner and that you're able to offer good service to the companies that you want to engage with, let's say in the B2B and SaaS context.
Great.
Yeah, because I think this is also, if you're trying to build a distribution network, what Patrick has just said, really apply equally to the distribution network. And what are distributors looking for? They're looking for suppliers that have a track record, that know how to deliver, that know how to work internationally, and providing content that shows that expertise, that shows existing distribution, goes a long way to helping to build your brand. Because ultimately, that distribution strategy is about, let me help you build your company by selling my product, right? And so I think a lot of what he just covered is identical as you think about building distribution.
Thanks for adding that. Before we get to questions, from our participants, I have one other question for you. This has been fabulous, best practices, kind of how to do all of this. Do you have any, let's say, rookie mistakes that you'd like to share just to help people? It's always better to learn from other people's mistakes.
Yes, it's much more
your own.
cost effective like that. I agree. I mentioned earlier, like the biggest mistake is everything everywhere all at once, right? Biting off more than you can chew. I think here that is what people have been told, like go big or go home. You need to internationalize the whole thing, translate the whole site. No, actually, you really don't have to. I give the we worked with Paris Hilton Skincare. They started selling in Germany, and they said, well, we're not getting any traction there, so we're going to translate the whole thing. And it would have been a few tens of thousands of dollars, like I think something like 20,000, translating the whole thing professionally. They needed that done very quickly, so the price was even higher. And we suggested like a tiny baby step. Said we're just going to have a welcome pop-up that says, welcome, we're happy. Yes, we deliver to Germany. There's a guarantee and all of that. We just make it clear that if you buy from us from Germany, it'll get to you within 2 weeks and you can return if you don't like it. And just doing that, and I think we use Just Tuno for that, or maybe just another tiny pop-up maker. Just doing that, we went from 0% conversion. The US conversion rate, the sort of basically the number, the percentage of visits that turn into sales, right? That conversion rate in the United States was something like 3%. And just by deploying that tiny pop-up that cost maybe $1,000 in fees to produce, brought that conversion rate up to 2%. So still not as like high performance as the US website, but considering the investment, that was very cost effective. So go incremental, check a few bugs, like start just by welcome messages, and then maybe have an international shoppers page, and then just add gradually. Don't go to all the markets at once. So gradual, incremental really is the name of the game here. And I think like the second piece of advice is, I would say, be realistic. Opening a new market, going into a new market isn't free. Even if you're using, let's say, Shopify Markets, which is going to cost you, I think, a few percentage points in fees, it's still going to cost you a lot in terms of researching that market, adapting your marketing, sometimes changing your product pictures, and it's going to take a lot of effort to open each market. So that's why if you go gradual, if you go incremental, you're going to be it'll be a much safer approach. Also, again, starting small, starting smart. People oftentimes, and I don't know why they always make that mistake. They'll say, "Well, I'm going to sell into France, so I'm going to open a business in France." And for some reason, they find a company and corporation website. I'll do that for a few $100, and they start with that, which you really don't have to do anymore. With merchant of record services or services like Zonos, you can sell into 60 or 70 countries without ever having to file fill out a single form. So that I would say is and also an important thing, and that's pretty much on the same topic. And then lastly, yes, be aware that because your local digital agency is doing great work for you here, it does not mean that they have what it takes to succeed in another market. Adapting, they're writing great ad copy. Here, it's amazing. Maybe they don't have what it takes to write great ad copy in 60 different markets. I know my team couldn't. So you have to work with local talent when you're adapting your content, when you're planning your marketing campaigns, because your agency here might not have the experience and the expertise to successfully market in other countries. So these would be like the four not rookie mistakes, but four mistakes I would try to avoid.
That's great. And Kevin just had a comment in the chat about merchant of record. Would you like to elaborate on that, Kevin?
What Catherine was saying is that merchant of record model is really a powerful way to go. I've been working with a software company that is considering opening up legal entities in 35 countries around the world to be able to take and transact business. And we suggested don't do that. Merchant of record model, somebody like a Digital River or a Zonos, they're going to take all that compliance headache off of you. They're already legally established. They can already handle the cross-border payments, and they do it for an it's amazingly competitive cost-wise. And so that's a really good strategy. And in their particular case, they use a merchant of record model now to renew service contracts rather than having to take and open up a legal entity and have the burden of all of that management on them. So there's a lot of tools to make this international commerce life much easier than it used to be.
Yeah, death by paperwork is sad. So Digital River and Zonos do a great job simplifying your life. Yeah.
Sort of touching on all of that, there's also the model of having trade partners or opening an entity in each of the markets, each of the countries. Can one of you kind of just touch on briefly? I know we're trying to focus more on the website's role in all of this, but that's obviously a model that some companies use.
I'll touch a little bit on it. I think cross-border e-commerce is a great way to go for companies that are just getting started. The one thing that helps you to identify markets where you have product demand, and that you then may want to take and explore for developing distribution. So it's that same approach that Patrick's talking about, really that kind of incremental approach. And if you start generating strong cross-border sales or e-commerce sales into a market, then it's probably worth doing the deep dive to say, is there a volume there that have distribution makes sense? And then to go about looking for distribution partners. And there's ways to find distribution partners in the country. Patrick, anything you'd add to that?
No, but well, yes. When you're looking at if your strategy is to find local distributors, right? I showed you an international buyers page, but we oftentimes with our client will create a page that's dedicated to potential distributors. So we show all the resources about our products, downloads that they can find, also where in which markets we're already active, what distributors we're already working with. Again, this social proof, these testimonials will go a long way. And these pages oftentimes will invest and get translated because these pages are optimized to be found by search engines. So if someone is looking, a potential distributor is looking for a product, we want your distributor optimized page to be shown in those search results. So this is one other tactic that you can use if your strategy is to find distributors.
That's great. Thank you. Well, I'd like to open it up for questions from anybody else out there. Maybe since we're small, you can go ahead and just speak up. I do have one question here to begin with. What does it cost on average to internationalize an existing website?
There are a number of factors that come into play when estimating the cost. First, the platform that you're using. If you're on Salesforce Commerce Cloud, it's a much more complex platform than, let's say, Shopify and Shopify Markets. So if you're using purely Shopify Markets and you don't wish to translate anything, let's say you're taking the purely incremental approach, you activate Shopify Markets, which I think costs you something 1.2% extra of each sale. And then you say, oh, we're gonna take Patrick's approach of just having welcome messages in 5 languages. Then your internationalization of e-commerce can cost a few $100s to a few $1,000s. We're working now with Western Glove Works, the company behind Silver Jeans, Jack Jeans, and a number of other brands, and opening their Canadian website on Salesforce Commerce Cloud, making sure that all the distribution partners, all the pick, pack, and ship is structured properly. We're working with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and this is I think it's a $500,000 project just for the planning and the execution of the connectors. So it's a very wide range. But if you're taking an incremental approach and starting from a good platform, you can do it for like I said, a few $1,000s at most.
That's great. I know we're bumping up against 12 o'clock, and there's some important information that I wanted to make sure that Kevin shares about resources that are available for free to small businesses that need help with your website. We can continue on. I'm happy to stay on and we can answer other questions that you have. But Kevin, would you like to address that free e-commerce assistance?
Sure. And it goes back to this SBDC program or a program that's funded by the SBDC. And really it is, Joyce made a comment, overwhelming, but in a good way. Really, the program is designed to take and to break that big, what looks to be the monumental process down into steps. And we take and help you practice step by step the process of building that international online presence in e-commerce. And it can be decisions like, what platform am I going to use, product merchandising, simple things to cross-border payments, to search engine optimization. And so that's a program where you work with us either in small group settings or in one-on-one counseling, and we hope you come up with that roadmap to get there from here. There's also one of the things Patrick talked about is that they're going to deprecate the current version of Google Analytics, and they're going into Google Analytics 4. That's on July 7th, something. I mean, really soon. So we'll have student interns, for example, that will be helping businesses to install GA4 then on their platforms to be able to start gathering, the data that they can from that. And so really the intent is to provide, practical help to get businesses from wherever they're at and move along the path to prosperity economies.
That's great.
We'll send out a brief follow-up flyer. My contact information is on that. If you're interested in learning more or talking with us about that in your specific cases, please reach out to us.
Now, Suzanne is going to send that out to everybody following this. Are there any other questions that anyone would like to ask for the good of the group?
I have a quick question.
Okay.
So I've lived in and worked in Southeast Asia, India, and Switzerland. So I do understand there's some nuances, not other than languages, and nuances in cultural differences. So how do businesses ensure cultural sensitivity and adaptability when globalizing their website?
I'd say work with a local. It's understanding, for example, the expectations of customers is very important. In certain countries like Germany, for example, they're more patient with delivery, and the Nordics as well. North Americans are, well, because we've been spoiled with Amazon, we're notoriously impatient. We like everything the following day. And if you're in the UAE, you want everything in 3 hours. So that's one thing. So if you're working with people that are either local there or that have a deep experience working with a specific culture and the specific buyer personas and customers or consumers, they will help you a lot because you won't be making a few costly mistakes.
There are some other free resources you get online, at least to get some general background. Commercial Service has what we call country guides, country commercial guides. There are some resources that give you what I would call high-level information and start to hint at some of what Patrick was talking about. The other thing that I think is really good is find a competitor or somebody that's in your market industry niche. You look, if they've already localized it, they have a website that's already adapted to your target markets. Seeing what other companies that are doing in a similar or what I would call an adjacent industry space, something that's not directly yours, but that nudges up against it. And that can be a great way to learn. It's also a great way to look for distributors.
Right. Well, Claudine, would you, anybody who has additional questions, you'll have both Patrick and Kevin's email on the email that comes out to you. But Claudine, would you like to just close this up?
Sure.
I would like to thank Kevin and Patrick for being here today and bringing this great information, but I know Claudine has a little bit more to say.
I hope this session has provided everyone a wealth of knowledge. I've definitely taken away some actionable strategies today. I want to express my sincere gratitude to our esteemed panelists for generously sharing your knowledge and insights. So please feel free to connect with Patrick, Kevin, and Anne after this webinar. Also, a big thank you to our sponsor, PG&E, for the continued support. Check out their link that's in the chat for more resources. I would like to also say my thanks to the NABO team and Suzanne here today for your commitment in organizing this impactful webinar. Lastly, I would also like to thank all the participants. Your support is the driving force behind the success of NABO's initiatives. We have a lineup of great events this year. So I'm kicking off the year with an in-person happy hour in San Francisco. So do check in with us on our website. With that, have a wonderful summer, everyone.
And please join me in congratulating Claudine, who is our incoming president for the coming year, starting in July. So happy to have Claudine there. Just such a wonderful organization. My company would not even be close to where it is now. Double-digit millions of dollars coming through, and all really because NABO taught me how to put on training wheels and then when to take them off, and all of the networking and mentoring and support and learning that I got along the way is how I'm here today to be able to do this with you. Thank you for joining us, everybody.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all. Bye.